We were lined up really well for that.
Yeah.
It's like you planned it.
I did not.
We're going to assume you did.
Yeah.
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 Just I have knowledge of all subsurface currents.
You can't help it. It's a power he has.
Yeah, down to 3,000 meters. Just the layback's been pretty consistent at around 550. So now we know. If you're going or not, you're 3,000 meters deep. You'll be 550 meters behind. There's an anemone.
Very cute.
So say we do come upon something, we're not like, we're just going to keep doing the survey though, are we going to stop the ship?
No, we're going to continue to the survey. We'll likely start to hone in our search pattern. So perhaps shorten the lines. And in both directions. But to be discussed based on what we're seeing and how much of a intact or debris field we're seeing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Ronnie, I see the marks there in HYPACK. Where's the actual marker? Is it to the left of the S?
Yes, it's a red triangle right here.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And that, I believe, is based on the coordinate that was written down.
Right.
That was logged by aircraft that went to survey, but I could be wrong. The back row could correct me. We have some other general marks that are
coming
around
in
the
for
same
you,
area, but fish.
Yeah, fishy, fishy, fishy.
Pretty sure that's a chordate fish.
Are all fish chordate fishes?
Yeah.
So, Doctor, as I know a lot depends on the currents and the current strength and direction, but with aviation wreckage, do you notice that oftentimes if they're kind of intact that they do kind of glide a little bit as they sink, or I mean, there's kind of dependent on so many things.
Let me just say that I have heard people who claim that. I am not one of the ones who have ever seen any evidence of major flying down the water column. Airplanes just don't do that in my experience. So if an airplane has ditched completely intact and the wings are almost completely empty of fuel, then those are going to be major float points, and that will affect how it glides down. But usually I would say that that was not the case. So if you have a major portion of your aircraft, the fuselage, if that's compromised and you have water inside of that and you have these massive heavy engines, I mean the heaviest thing on an aircraft is the engine. So those are almost always on the wing. If you have those dragging your wing down, then you're going to go straight down. So the engines will force the aircraft to turn into the seafloor and sort of dive straight for it. So that it really doesn't mean that it can sort of fly for miles and miles and miles like it would in the air. In my experience, that just does not happen.
Just from doing this type of work, I would imagine that it's dependent on current. Obviously, if the engine was decoupled from the wing, it would kind of fall a bit straight down. But currents may push the wing a bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, what do we got here? Some targets in there.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What are we, like 75 meters from the meters from the target?
Do you want me to mark anything in here? It just looks like rocks.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It just kind of started in mass, though.
Yeah, and we're
a lot of relief.
Some rocks.
We got rocks in the sonar as well.
Huh.
So there's some local relief here. You're starting to see it in the sonar, and also if you look in high pack, just above Argus here. Yeah, so it might be popping up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on that.
So if you're watching our cameras, Argus, you're pretty much seeing directly below where the side scan sonar isn't picking up anything. And then the side scan sonar is about 90 plus meters on either side to the left or right.
Is it?
Do you want paper? No.
That's a big rock.
It is a big rock.
Yeah. That would be the Garbathy here. It's changing our altitude at all. No.
Yeah. That is low. I lost our altimeter. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to stay this high right now.
Yeah. I'd say that's a pretty good idea, especially given the things that we're seeing. So yeah, we got a bunch coming up in front of us here too, just to kind of.
Ready, I'm just marking this one.
Roger that.
80 meters starboard.
80 to starboard. number 10, right?
Yes, correct.
Is this just a rocky area, or are we starting to travel up a small slope?
There's a bit of a, it's on the bathy, which is actually really, you can see how good the bathy is.
Yeah, it's pretty damn accurate.
Yeah, it's right on there. So this is local rock bump.
Rock bump.
So we'll have to pass that on to other watches, is that if we saw that,
Oh yeah.
if we had to be aware of that, with that slope, then this other one on this southern line will be, we may have to even slow approach or something.
Yeah, I was definitely on the winch.
Or know that we
Pretty
need to be just
hardcore.
on the winch leading up to it.
Yep. Alright, looks like we're clear of that for now.
Yeah.
I was up to like 24. That was abrupt.
You should be safe after.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit of something coming up ahead, but. I think you're still alright.
Yeah, I'm going back down.
Roger.
There's the bottom.
Alright, we're super close to that target.
Yeah.
Looks like rocks.
So we have a question for our ROV pilots, if you have a moment, about whose idea was it to put the tail fin on Argus to kind of help stabilize it?
Someone higher up on the food chain than us too. That's an excellent idea though.
Our idea to put a dive plane on the front was rejected.
That was Dan's idea, for the record.
Just for looks and sound effects. So.
And it would have been all stickered up and logoed. Designs by Dan.
A couple of flames and some racing pinstripes.
Yeah, flames also make it go faster. It's a scientifically proven fact.
What are the chances that we find it, like, right as we pass over the site?
We're about to find out.
thanks for all of you watching along with us. It's about 2 a.m. American Samoa time. We're about 12 miles away from American Samoa, and we're diving, I believe, just about 3,200 meters below. And we are towing Argus, something we don't typically do. I think the last time Mike Brennan said it was done was about 2010. I could be wrong. But we're using Argus and Argus's Edutech 4200 side scan sonar to map a search area, and we actually had a great time because we're just about passing through the middle of our search area in terms of where we hope the Samoan Clipper might be. That doesn't guarantee that it's there, of course. The plane hasn't been seen since its fateful last flight on January 11th, 1938, but you can keep your fingers and toes crossed along with us as we continue on. But even after we do hopefully find the wreckage, there's still a lot to be done before that, as we have to search the area and continue to do a bit of a grid pattern to identify any debris field that may exist, any obstructions that may exist. We don't want to get caught in any fishing net or anything like that. And then as we finish up that, then we'll start to get ready towards our next dive, which might involve Hercules. But no need to involve Hercules at this time, just because we need to cover a larger area to find all the dive targets, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, were about 10 dive targets that we found, or 10 potential points of interest.
10 in, yep.
It's like 60.
Offset for what? That. Yeah, I'm not sure what it was.
Oh no.
I think our gain went way down.
So, Doctor, after you find a wreckage like
Overgained, yes.
this, some people are wondering kind of what are next steps after you do a dive such as this and you locate a wreckage?
So once we locate this, one of the main things that we'll do first is simply characterize the site. So we video the crap out of it, and we try and find out what everything is. So like you've heard us say, we won't know exactly what the deterioration is. We won't know in how many pieces they're going to be, in how bad a shape that they're going to be. So basically we just need to make sure that we have 1,010% coverage of it with video, so that we can always query the site later. After we're able to kind of go around and identify components and make sure that we have everything videoed, what we'll try and do that we're still talking about is quite possibly a photomosaic map. However, what we're planning on doing is a 3D modeling from photogrammetry map that we will take of either each individual separate site, or if it's one large site, then we'll do the entire large site. Afterwards, we potentially might have some time for some sampling, and those will be for diagnostic items, small samples. So yeah.
After you return, is there anything else that happens with preservation or publishing your findings, or what would be some next steps for you?
Post-processing all of the data from the records, and that includes, I mean, we relook over these sonar data sets. We look over the video, however many hours we log on that. We will build the photogrammetry model, and if we recover any samples, they would be sent to a conservation lab for initial documentation, treatment, study, and then, yeah, publishing afterwards.
Nice. Those samples, once they're kind of prepared, where do they get stored, or where do they find a home?
If we recover any samples on this trip, that is a major if, they will be sent initially to the Conservation Research Lab at Texas A&M University under the direction of Peter Fix for this project. And if we decide, basically, San Francisco Flight Museum has the right of first refusal for artifacts, but all of that would be completely dependent on what we bring up, if anything. So questions that we would have to answer later.
I wanted to jump on with a question as well. Are there any steps to preserve or protect the wreck after we find it?
One of the main ways that we protect wrecks is by simply not telling people where they are, basically. So, so that it doesn't get any human interference. In this case, it's less likely because it's going to be so deep.
Right.
In terms of actual steps to actively preserve it, there's not much that we can do. There have been some studies for steel shipwrecks where they basically attach coupons to the wreck. So for galvanic reactions, stronger metals prey on weaker metals to steal their electrons so that they are more protected. So in terms of steel wrecks, they actually put aluminum coupons on them so that they can take the electrons from the aluminum and complete their own, so that they're not as susceptible to deterioration. In aircraft wrecks, because it is, of course, aluminum, there's been some studies with taking or attaching magnesium coupons, because we know that magnesium is the first thing to go on an aircraft wreck. But there's not much study done on that. And for a wreck like this, we wouldn't do that. We're not prepared to do that, number one. And then number two, there hasn't been any real, there won't be another visit to this wreck in the next foreseeable future.
Right.
So we wouldn't be actively monitoring it, and the only reason to put those coupons on there is that if you can actually monitor it in some way anyways. So for continued research. So I think that the longest monitored aircraft wreck that I know of, scientifically monitored and documented aircraft wreck that I know of, is the remains of the biplanes of the USS Macon, and of course that airship site. And on that site, we haven't done any preservation work either. So that could be a possibility in the future, but it's just not something that anybody has taken enough interest in to pay for that to be done.
Got it.
I guess is the way.
I have a question that relates to that.
Go for it.
There is a marine sanctuary at American Samoa. Would there be any point in, should we find this, putting a box around it and creating another sanctuary?
Yeah, and that's actually something that I did forget to mention in terms of our post products, is that we will be using what we find, if we find the wreck, to nominate it to the National Register of Historic Places, because we are in a U.S. territory. So there is also the possibility for the National Marine Sanctuary here to be either expanded or, yeah, we jump over and we put a loop on it, but that's not up to us to decide. So all we can do is say, yeah, we hope so. That would be awesome.
do you feel about this target there?
We can take it. Let's do it.
It's hard to get the streaking we're getting. But
Yeah.
Okay, how far off was that?
80, yeah, 80 to the starboard.
Okay. Was that 11?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Rennie.
Yep. See what the rest of it looks like.
So are we going through the center point of this right now? Are we going through the center of that search area right now?
Where, yeah, here, let's see. The ship is about 40 minutes out from where I'd like to stop it. And we'll let Argus swing. We'll step to the next direction.
Coming in.
Okay.
Enhance.
Coming out.
Roger.
Full wide.
The slick that was spotted after the, or when they started to conduct the search in 1938, did they mark the GPS coordinates for that?
The Avocet, the seaplane tender that went out, didn't record any lats or longs in their log, but the accident report that was published later did. And so they obviously knew where the oil slick was and put those coordinates on it.
And it wasn't the ship, sorry, wasn't the ship on site basically within a couple hours?
The plane,
From the plane sighting?
flown by Williamson, who was also the captain of the Avocet, flew out. There was smoke reported, and he flew out and flew over it and reported the slick and as though it were coming from the bottom. And he went back and sent the Avocet out, and they went out in the evening and stayed all night in the area, and then right after daybreak they started spotting the debris. And he flew out again and confirmed that it was the same spot.
Cool.
He set the mileage from Tapu Tapu Point. It was rather frustrating in the ship's log not to find lats and longs, but comments about constantly changing course and speed.
Why were they changing so much?
Your guess. Well, they were searching for debris and picking things up. So If they spotted something, they probably changed course. And as Dr. Megan mentioned yesterday, there wasn't that much debris. And I believe they were surprised by the lack of metal, but I think the only piece of metal they actually picked up was a piece of strut, 8 feet by about 5 inches.
And the rest was things that they identified as being from the interior, like floorboards, wall pieces, the navigator's drift table tray.
Pilot's armrest. Bits of soundproofing. Papers.
Didn't you say there was a door also recovered from the interior?
Icebox.
2 icebox doors were recovered some days later.
On an island to the northeast.
Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift ROV style.
Do we have a thought about which direction we'd like to continue with these lines, north or south?
I would like to go south.
South. South it is.
Thank you.
It's a 50-50, so no opinion either way.
So, of those 2 targets, one of those are where the ship's gonna go?
Both of those are, one's 150 and one's 250 out. We're deciding currently. We could go a full 250 out, then make a step over and a step back on the next line. So we'd have to do that with the ship backing down on the next line.
Backing down.
If we want to turn the ship and drive the other way, then we'll need to wait for it to settle or do the full big turn. Roger. We'll see what kind of speed we make backing down on the next line. If we don't like it, we'll turn around.
Well, the ship's gonna turn its heading, right?
Well, that's the question, right? Because
or is it? I guess it wouldn't change its heading.
we don't have to, but we would if we're not making a knot going the other way, then. And we have to keep an eye, even though it's 3,000 meters, we should still keep an eye on wire cam to see if backing down at a knot is gonna be operable. I'll double check, but yeah, roughly. Yeah, 550, possibly, yeah, 550 we'll say. Yeah.
No. That's what it should, your fancy thing says it should be. Huh. Sokotoa. Bless you.
We doing trigonometry? Ah, there you go.
As we continue on, the science team has identified about 11 areas of interest so far. We are traveling through, or just about done traveling through the center of the search area.
What's it called? Trig help. Accurately named.
Do we know why we're suddenly getting more minus 999s? We had a pretty steady readout.
I don't know. It's
Seems like some pretty close terrain here on the
yeah,
on the
I'm
right.
definitely hauling up. Yeah, those contour, this map is like pretty spot on.
Yeah. Thanks, Okeanos. Multi-beam, don't lie. See it in the side scan too. Get the can see the slope there. Brighter on the right and darker on the left. Bridge nav. When we begin to drive the reciprocal bearing on this survey pattern, would you like to keep the ship at its current heading and back down, or would you want to turn the ship around? Okay, and the weather with the current and wind, we're okay to do that? Okay. Thank you. So he wants to turn around, face west. So we could try to do a big turn. I don't think that that'll work out very well. I think that we should do what you said, stop it, step over, go back here, and then once Argus should hopefully be around in that same spot by then. And we'll flip the heading and then start to drive. You see any issues with that? It's an experiment. It's 15 knots from the east. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you care what my heading is in the turn? Doesn't really matter, I guess.
Yeah, you can try to estimate it to
Perfect.
Whichever direction Argus is going.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, the USBL is tracking perfectionly, so that should
Perfectionly, huh?
be a telltale sign of how good I'm doing.
How far away do you think Argus is from end of line?
In time or in space?
Time.
In time units from the end of line is probably half hour.
Great.
It's one of the more annoying. Do it.
Do it.
So the views that you're seeing at home, on the first feed you see our side scan sonar, and that is coming from Argus right now, and is mapping the area, and then our science team is using that to identify targets. We've identified about 11 so far that they're interested in. And then the camera feed you see is directly from Argus, but is underneath Argus. So the side scan sonar obviously doesn't scan beneath it. We don't get that image, and we're fortunate enough that we can see it's about 20 meters or so wide camera view.
Yeah, 20 meters. That's our estimate.
And then the
From left to right.
Thanks. And then the third image you see, that's our forward-facing sonar that kind of helps us identify any potential obstacles and rock faces or anything like that that we might need to pull up or adjust our altitude. But we also have a very detailed bathymetric map from the Okeanos when they were here in the area. So we're pretty well informed of what's here in terms of large geographic features. Lonnie, we have a question for you. Somebody would like to know the shipwreck or crash at the top of your list to find, besides the Samoan Clipper? Obviously, the Samoan Clipper's an airplane, but is there anything that you are kind of have on the top of your list besides the Clipper?
No, I'm just concentrating on this one right now. This is, we've been working on this since 2014, and we have unifocus on this one. Later on, we can move to something else.
That's a good answer.
Very good answer. I have a question coming in as well as about Argus and the thrusters. Is Argus still, I think on our first watch we had one thruster on for Argus. Is it that same configuration now, or is it just mainly being pulled?
Affirmative. We've got just our forward thruster on to keep our heading, and it's doing a really good job. We turned the aft thruster off because it is giving off noise and it's affecting our side scan data. So with not really needing it and it enhancing data, we have secured it.
Thanks. Feel free to keep sending in those questions as we continue our search for the Samoan Clipper. We're continuing our dive plan right now of mapping the area as much as possible. The plan was originally for about 24 hours. We've gone across once and now are moving diagonally and moving through that center area of our search area before we get through and then turn to do another path across our search area. Question coming in about expeditions and in the past if weather has ever affected or delayed or canceled any, and the answer to that is yes. Weather can definitely impact our dives. Hercules in particular can only operate within certain wind speeds and waves. Argus being tethered through that steel cable exclusively can tolerate a bit more, and it's not particularly bad weather out right now, so we're perfectly fine.
Don't forget the third weather parameter.
Yeah.
The invisible one we can't see. Current.
Current.
It's a huge one for us.
How are the currents in this part of the world? Are they typically pretty strong, or?
On the way down here, the previous cruise we were seeing the, I'm going to get this horribly wrong. And it can have equatorial.
Undercurrent, yeah, the equatorial undercurrent.
Equatorial undercurrent. Yeah, and it would kick in somewhere between 80 meters and 150 meters. It's probably 2 to 3 knots, so it would sweep Herc around in a heartbeat when nothing we could do about it. Just sit there and watch it skate across the nav screen at a couple knots.
It's like
it was running exactly opposite of the surface current, so we would launch with everything stretched out, and then we'd get down and like, what's happening?
Flip around.
And it would flip around 180.
Those made recoveries fun. Actually, they weren't too bad because above 50 meters, it just did not seem to affect it at all. So we just kind of knew that we had to get to that point and let it settle out.
It's definitely an undercurrent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all this cable out. You think of, 3,000 meters of cable out. All that gets just a large amount of drag in the current.
Yes.
When you have a section of strong current like that, is the goal to just have a lot of cable out, or just kind of get through it relatively quickly so you don't get pulled too far away?
Depends. If we're at the bottom or at the seafloor and we're feeling a lot of current, it's kind of, we may have to reassess which side of a slope we're looking at. But oftentimes that's at odds with the biological goals. Is we're looking for sometimes high current, high slope areas that corals and sponges would prefer, versus the ability of Hercules to fight those currents and get good video in a safe manner. On the way down, we have a lot, there's not really anything for us to bump into, so just have to make sure that the vehicles stay away from each other.
Unless any more whales come to visit us.
Yeah.
So the question coming in about how we are searching. We are searching, kind of making, it's like you were mowing the lawn, going back and forth across the search area, which is off of Tapu Tapu Point, about 12 miles from American Samoa. And actually, if we were to see something, let's say if you were watching our camera, we wouldn't just kind of stop what we were doing. We would actually continue on, and we'd kind of narrow our search field a little bit in those passes that we were making, so we could get as a good a lay of the land as possible. The reason being is we want to be able to understand all your search and dive targets, but you also, when you want to come back, want to be able to understand any obstacles or hazards. Things like fishing net doesn't appear on our sonar very easily, if at all. So those are obstacles we want to avoid, and we want to fully understand the area as much as we can before we dive both Argus and Hercules down. This can be expensive issues if you don't take care of them ahead of time and do your due diligence.
Forgot to put the telltale on when we were on deck.
Oh.
And the stickers.
Oh.
Ah.
What were you thinking?
What were we thinking? That should have been the first thing done. Shucks.
Peyton, I think it's time for you to make a custom sticker. Use your amazing drawing skills.
I actually learned to make stickers over the course of the school year because my dorm actually had a makerspace in the bottom floor. So I
kill him.
Low-key lived there.
That does not surprise me in the least.
It was very fun. They had like a laser cutter there, so I was making a bunch of dice boxes out of plywood for my friends. Like 3D printers, they had sewing machines. Yeah, it was amazing.
So you can 3D print, sew, and laser cut.
Yeah.
And draw and paint.
Yeah, they also have like a really small water jet cutter, so you can cut through like solid material. Though it's broken most of the time.
And you go to University of Washington or
Yep.
the candy land of STEM? Because that sounds amazing.
A little bit of both.
Bridge nav. We'll proceed to the selected target.
Peyton, you're
When we
gonna
get there, we'll hold station,
to
and then
design
we'll
all of our
step
styrofoam
the ship
cups
over
when we do it.
to the other this target right here, and we'll back down.
Maybe. I think
And
Marlene
when we
wanted
reach
to make
this
a couple.
target here, we'll change heading. But I'll let you know that as we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's an interesting result on the side scan.
Yeah.
Looks like a ridge.
Nothing but noise out there.
So we have a question about favorite snacks while in the control van. Anybody have a go-to?
Coffee beans.
Coffee beans?
The cookies that are still downstairs.
I brought some like mini pretzels up.
Oh, very
Espresso
good.
beans. Anybody?
Is that a signal for everybody to crinkle their bag?
It's that time during the previews of the movie where it's okay for everybody to crinkle everything.
That's the signal for us to remember that we're actually hungry now.
No, don't think about that yet.
No.
Sleep deprived.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I took a slept before, but I am still tired.
Right? Any extra snacks?
Sitting in the dark doesn't help.
True.
Yeah.
But the company of wonderful people such as all of you does.
Oh.
Collective. We're a family.
It's my favorite snack at the moment is coffee.
Yeah.
Ooh. Did you bring any with you?
I did. I've got it right here.
Very nice.
That's her secret to surviving the archives.
Oh, you're not allowed to have any liquids in the
Oh,
archives.
no.
No.
Have a secret IV drip somehow attached to your body.
I mean, if they had a Starbucks outside of the archives, they'd probably make a killing.
Probably.
Rennie, we've got a lot of love for you coming in.
Oh no.
It's your mom wants you to know that even though it's Amazon Prime Day, you win.
Thanks, Ma.
That's
Uh-huh.
so sweet.
It is Prime Day.
It is.
Anybody
What is-
secretly hoping for a good deal on something?
Wait, what does that even mean?
Amazon Prime.
Amazon
has-
Prime Day. They made
yeah.
their own
They
fake
have their own
shopping holiday.
Yeah.
Are they
Wow.
delivering by drone?
Yeah.
Off of American Samoa.
It's
right
time to
in-
challenge Bezos.
There's a target coming up.
One of the things I heard was the best thing about Amazon Prime this year was probably the Whole Foods coupon that they were doing.
Ooh.